Let's talk about heartbreak, man. I had big dreams. I wanted to be in the Premier League. So let me talk you through the story of being so close, yet so far, and the trials and tribulations of being in a Premier League football academy. Because you think you're gonna make it, and then when you don't, you realize that life comes at you really fast. And there's a whole process behind that. So if you've been watching any of my videos, my reels, my TikToks, you would know I played for Crystal Palace for 10 years, ages 8 to 18. And when I was 16, did my GCSEs, got offered a scholarship form, and I had 2 years as a full-time scholar. And just like millions and millions of other kids, I had major dreams of getting a professional contract and playing in the Premier League, one day playing for England and all that good stuff. By the way, I just came from a run. That's why I'm wearing this little run vest. Shout out Runnitude. So this video will be a little bit longer because I'm actually gonna go through like my whole football journey and being in a Premier League academy and what that experience is like. Kicking it off, I've played football forever. Since I was 4 or 5 years old, I've always played football. It was my favorite sport. It's what I love to do. And I was lucky enough, I played at a Sunday league team called Sydenham Sports, which then turned into Cray Wanderers, and we had some amazing footballers, Zach Ansar, Tariq Holmes-Dennis, Josh Ayafa. I mean, there was loads of ballers there. When I was young, I saw quite a few guys going to play for professional teams. So Moses McCarthy, Tariq, Ellis, these were guys all around my age. A few of them went to Charlton, a few of them went to West Ham. I was one of the last ones to actually get into a professional team. And I remember I went away for a year because my mum wanted me to go to church. Who's had that one before? Go to church, that's more important than football. Then thankfully my brother kind of supported me to get back into football. And that season I went back, I scored like bare goals as a kid, like 7 years old. And then I got the call from Palace. We went to come down, 6-week trial. I got my contract after like 3 weeks. So they obviously rated me quite highly at the time. And then you're in a professional contract. I can't really remember how I felt too much, but I know I was excited, I was buzzing, I was happy. It was something new. I'd never been in a pro team before. When you're in a professional academy, your mentality is, okay, I just need to get a contract every single year and I want to get in the first team. So even when I was young, I did think about that, but I also thought about the competitive element of people wanting my position and realizing that I'm a bit different to other kids because a lot of kids are just playing on Sundays and they're never going to get in anywhere near an academy, or they're never going to get even close to that level. The truth is, out of 1.5 million youth footballers, only 180 kids actually get to the Premier League. So that's less than 1%. While I was in the club, year after year, I was getting contract, year extension. Then as an under 14 player, I got the big one. I got the scholar. Usually scholarship offers are given out when you're 16. But me and about 5 other lads who were quite highly rated at the time got our scholarships early. I was buzzing, of course. And actually, there was a period where I wasn't even sure if I was going to sign it. I had some people in my ear saying, wait, don't sign it yet. Wait, you might be able to get another club. But Palace is around the corner. I've lived in South London my whole life. It was just what I thought would make sense. It's the easiest club for me. And maybe at the time I should have done something different, but I was young. I didn't really have anyone telling me what to do, even at that age. I kind of just did what I felt was best and what worked for me. My mum don't really know about football. My dad wasn't really too involved in the football side. It was mainly me and my brother. And even throughout the years of trying to make my way through the academy, in a whole season, you'd see so many boys come and go. There's even boys in the local area that I would ask the club to bring them on trial because there was so much talent in South London. But as I said, loads of boys come and go when it comes to academy football. It's like a meal house. So yeah, let's get back to the story though. So I got my scholar and it was mad because like I was saying, people telling me not to sign it. I even had an agent saying, Newcastle wanted you, don't sign it yet. But signing the scholar is when politics of football start to become real. There was always politics, and even at a young age, I noticed certain things. But when you get a bit older, it's like glaring you in the face how political the system is. And I don't know how to say these things without it sounding like sour grapes, but I also have to tell my truth, my honest truth. So let's fast forward a bit, 16, done my GCSEs. I hated school, by the way. I was an A-star student, 5 A stars, 5 A's and 2 B's, something like that. I was good at school, but I hated it. So going full time was the best thing for me. I remember my first year as a scholar, pre-season, everything's going well, and I get injured, but then I managed to come back for the first game against Liverpool. Let me tell you this, yeah, obviously I'm a big Liverpool fan. So we get to the training ground. I know I'm not starting. I've been told I'm not starting. I was coming back from an injury, so I couldn't be too angry. But I've come off the bench. I've scored in the last minute to win the game, and they've only gone and said that it's offside. I'll put the video in there. But overall, my first year experience was a bit up and down. I scored loads of goals. I was coming off the bench a lot, but things were like, in my opinion, quite political. There were times where I feel like I was training well. I'll come off the bench and score, still be on the bench next week. But you need to realize one thing in football is that it's not always about how talented you are. And sometimes it's about if your face fits. And there's certain people and there's certain relationships that are not going to allow you to flourish in certain environments. I was playing up front sometimes, I was playing out wide sometimes, and I didn't really mind either or. But I had goals against Chelsea, I had goals against Wolves, I was coming off the bench and scoring against Liverpool. I had goals against Fulham. Like, I was a regular goal scorer, but I wasn't outstanding. I wasn't scoring goals relentlessly, but I also wasn't playing every week. So I was sitting on the bench, coming off the bench. I would always play though, versus some other lads who were sitting on their bench the whole first year, they didn't even get to play. And you got the second years, so the boys that are a little bit older than you, and they're waiting to find out if they're going to get their pro contracts. And in terms of the coaches, there was one coach that obviously I really enjoyed, and his name was Ben Garner, current Charlton manager. He was one of my favorite coaches, hands down. He just understood the game and how I think young boys wanted to play it at the time, because this is a time where the whole Barca tiki-taka style thing was really getting big, and he just employed that from the get-go. He made training fun, and at the time he was the assistant coach. But for me, he made training fun and enjoyable, and sometimes we'd argue and have back and forth, but I was an argumentative character anyway, so I never really felt like I ever disrespected him or he disrespected me, and this was part of the process. But then Palace first team got promoted, which should have been the best and biggest thing as a scholar, right? But boy, oh boy, life changed after that. Because at the time, Palace were in the Championship. Then they got promoted in my second year, and the club just changed. The way I describe it to people is like, the first team outgrew the club because the training ground was like League One standards. It was tiny. The changing rooms for the youth players was like worse than the leisure centre. It was mad. But as soon as we got promoted, nothing mattered anymore in regards to young players and stuff like that. If I remember correctly, when Ian Holloway was manager, there was about 13 or 14 signings that one season alone. So I think a lot of the young boys knew that, okay, things just got a bit more political, a bit harder, and getting into the first team is going to be a whole different ballgame. And to give you a bit of an insight into how sad I was about being at Palace, because I didn't really enjoy my first year because I wasn't playing at the rate that I think I should have been playing for the amount of effort and the amount of contributions I had coming off the bench. I didn't even go to the playoff final. I gave my ticket away to one of my teammates. That's how pissed I was. I don't care about this. This don't matter to me. I should have fucking sold it. That's what I should have done. Genuinely unhappy at the time. I would say as a boy, I don't know, I just felt so angry and unhappy at my current situation. But it was also fueled by ambition. I wanted to be in the first team. I wanted to be there. Obviously, I wasn't good enough. I'll be real with you. I wasn't good enough at that time. And I didn't have the attributes to be able to compete at that level. But that's just the burning desire in me is like, why am I not even pushing into the 21s and stuff like that? That's really what was really like making my mentality quite, not dark, but it felt dark. So second year begins. We get a whole new coaching staff for the youth team. And the first thing that really happened is we basically got removed from the training ground. And this was probably the most maddest thing that I think I experienced. We trained at like 20 different places around South London in that one season alone. And I remember this one situation, God strike me down if I'm lying, was training in a park, in a park. This is a Premier League academy. He was training in a park and a dog ran into our session. I remember this like crystal clear. And I was thinking to myself, this is my second year. I'm trying to get a pro contract and we're not even allowed to train at the first team ground anymore. There was a time where we was allowed to eat with the first team. Couldn't eat with the first team no more. If you wanted to stay behind and do extras, you weren't allowed to do that anymore. And the maddest thing was, I remember one time, we had to get on a minibus, go somewhere to train, come back. I come back and I'm like, bro, I've got energy. I want to do some extras, work on my left foot, work on my heading. So I just took a couple balls, went down to the other end of the pitch. I'm doing shooting and that. All of a sudden, I just hear this screaming, get off the pitch. What are you doing on the pitch? I'm like, bro, what? What are you doing on the pitch? It was so confusing as a 17-year-old boy being told that you need to do more than what first team players are doing if you want to get there, but being moaned at for trying to do extras. So that was a time where I was like, okay, this is mad. There's no way. How am I going to progress here? I'm not allowed to do extras. I can't even use the gym. We weren't allowed to use the gym. It was mad. And I remember now, at the time, if I had a son and that was me, I would have said to him, look, okay, well, I'm going to take you. We'll do gym work on our own. I'm going to do extras with you on our own. But I didn't have that support with anybody around me at the time. Because really, that's the mentality I should have had. I should have been like, okay, well, if I can't do it here, the training's over. I'm just going to spend an extra hour and a half in the park. I'm going to spend an extra hour and a half in my local gym. That's the mentality I should have had. But I didn't have that support and I was just angry as well because we was being told we can't train here, we can't go there, we can't chill with the first team, can't use the gym, can't do extras. While being told you need to work extra hard, you need to do more than what the first team players are doing to get a contract. It was probably the most confusing time in my life and the angriest I'd been as a human being because I don't really express outward anger, but internally in my mind, I was going into training every day and not even wanting to be there. Didn't really like the staff except for like maybe one or two people. It was like, you guys got my career in your hands and you're taking a fucking piss. So all in that time, Tony Pulis becomes manager during that season and he was a funny guy. I remember the first meeting we had, he just come in, he was like, when you see me, just call me Gaffer. And that was it really. We never really had much interaction with Tony Pulis. He was quite a militant kind of character. And then obviously I didn't get a pro contract. So my second year was when I got released. released. But there's a few things that led up to that point. And there's one more thing I didn't even say. We weren't even allowed to wear the same training kit as the first team. So at the time, we had like the Nike shirt, Palace logo, all that stuff, Nike logo. The youth team had to wear a different brand. It was like some bright colored thing. It said Avec on it. And if we wore the first team one or the Nike one, we used to get moaned at. Honestly, the segregation was actually mad now that I think about it. But yeah, my second year, obviously I got released. So leading up to that, this was the first year I ever really dealt with a serious injury. So it was FA Youth Cup. I think we was playing against Port Vale or something like that. And it's a Friday. So anyone knows about football, Friday, you're just doing like prep work for the game. I've sprinted, bow, hamstring, done, bus off. I was like, oh my God. This was my first real injury. So I didn't really know about muscle strains, I didn't know recovery times. I just thought, all right, tomorrow I'll be good. I remember I said to the physio, Muzzer, I was like, yeah, I'll be okay for Saturday, right? Or Tuesday night, or whatever it was. He's like, oh, we'll see. I didn't think he wanted to tell me, like, yeah, you're not playing Youth Cup this year. I don't think he wanted to tell me that. So this is the first time I ever strained my hamstring, and this would become a recurring theme in my life. And it took me about 5 weeks to get back from that. And I didn't really know how to really manage injuries at the time because it was my first time ever. But then we moved to the part where I actually got released, because in my second year, I was picking up knocks every now and then. I wasn't playing consistently. I was in the team. I was the main striker. But then we had a young lad named Ibby, really good player. But every time I was injured, obviously he would be playing. They tried to play us together, which didn't really work. But our coaches at the time, if I'm being brutally honest, were a bit hit and miss. I knew I wasn't going to get my contract. Like, I actually knew the contract's not coming. I spoke to my agent at the time, which I'm not even going to reveal who it was, but a very big company. And he actually told me before I had a meeting with them, they told me that you're not getting a contract. So I kind of knew before then, but I still had the meeting because they didn't know that I knew. So I had the meeting. And I remember sitting in there and they're telling me this and I'm pretending like it's news to me, even though I knew already. And they're like, yeah, this is what we'll do for you after, blah, blah, blah. To be honest, they don't do anything for you after you get released, by the way. Yeah, so this is what they'll do, all that kind of stuff. And at the time, I wasn't even upset. I wasn't upset until about 6 months later. At the time, I was like, well, this is a bit of a relief because I kind of hate it here. We get treated like shit here. I didn't really enjoy it, so I didn't really care. And the same people that were telling me were the people that I didn't like. So it was like, well, whatever. And interestingly, when one of the coaches, he was an education guy, but he became a coach. And you can tell he's an education guy because he coaches like a teacher. I remember one time we was playing a game and we had a free kick, like goal scoring opportunity, and I wanted to take it. We didn't have no free kick specialists in our team. There was no one scoring goals from free kicks. So I'm taking it. I'd taken it and missed. I remember he called me into the office and he was like, why did you take the free kick when someone else could have took it? I was like to him, what? He's like, why didn't you let Thingy take the free kick? That's what I said. I was like to him, well, he's not Beckham. He's not Roberto Carlos. He's never scored a free kick. We didn't have no free kick specialist, so there was no one that was designated free kick taker. And those little things made me dislike certain people even more, because it was like, well, shouldn't you be encouraging us to practice these things? Well, no, we can't practice these things because we're not allowed to train at the training ground. So as you can see, it was like a mad cycle. So got released, cool. Devastated, but not really at the time because I was happy to be at the club. And then the one thing I will say is they allowed me to keep training and playing while looking for a new club. But that was probably the downfall of my whole football life, because we're playing against QPR. I've actually scored in the game. I remember I'm walking back to my car and I'm like, my knee feels a bit funny, but I can't really tell. I felt fine. I played the game. I felt fine. So my knee felt funny though. So I've driven home, gone back to training the next day, and I'm like, yo, my knee is just bothering me. It's clicking, it's mad. And weeks and weeks are going by. I'm still training, I'm still playing, I'm going on trials with this knee. And then finally, I'm like to my physio, look, can I get a scan? Because this is too much. You would think that it'll be over by now. Turned out I tore my meniscus. That was my first serious injury beyond the hamstring tear, like torn meniscus. I didn't know anything about knees or anything like that at the time. So I'm like, okay, cool. I ain't got a club. I tore my meniscus, got to get surgery. The surgeon says, look, it's an 8-week recovery. I said to him, I got a trial in 7 weeks. What do you think? I was with Yeovil first team. He's like, boy, you can go. There's no guarantee, but you can go. So I'm like, what do I do? So of course I go. Of course I go. So I went to the trial, but my knee was like a balloon. Honestly, it was mad. My knee was literally like a balloon. It's fair to say I didn't get a contract there. But actually, even before that, I was going on trial up and down the country. I went to Chesterfield, scored goals there. Went to Dagenham and Redbridge on the trial game, scored there. Did the exit trial, scored 4 goals there. But I was going places and scoring. but I wasn't being offered anything, or I was being told that they didn't have a budget. So it was a bit weird because I would say to them, well, why would you invite me to a club where you don't have a budget? Which was probably a lie, because in football, there's a lot of lies. At the end of this, I was practically depressed, borderline depressed. I wouldn't say I was in a full depressive mode, but I definitely had depressive thoughts, depressive state of mind. I was actually sat in my front garden on my stairs one time, and I was just sitting there. This is maybe after the surgery and after the trials, and it was like just after the summer kind of coming to an end. I'm sitting there, my mum was upstairs, and in the way my house is, the bathroom window you can see downstairs. So I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking about life, innit? Because I'm not working, not playing football anymore. I didn't really want to go to education. So I'm sitting there, and then I just had a full breakdown, crying, tears, everything, like boom. I didn't know what to do in my life. My mum comes down, she starts hugging me, don't cry, you know, mums know everything, innit? And yeah, man, that was probably like when I snapped out of it. And I know this is a bit controversial, Andrew Tate has a little video that he mentioned. I see it pop up on TikTok, where he talks about he don't really believe in depression, but he believes that yes, men can have depressive thoughts. And before this guy came on the scene, I've always felt like that. I'm not saying depression isn't real, but I've always felt like, yeah, you can be sad, you can have depressive thoughts, but that will never rule me. So the kind of person I am and the kind of attitude that I walk with, I knew that this was never going to be the end of me being great at something or doing something great. So I just said to myself, boy, at that time, I got to do something different that's going to allow me to just be me. And at the time, football just didn't feel like it was fulfilling me anymore, because everywhere I go, the doors are being shut in my face and my body's breaking down as well, because there's just injury after injury. And then my good friend, my good coach, Ben Garner, actually offered the opportunity to me to move to the States. And I ended up going there and playing college soccer at the D1 level for another 4 years. I won't go into all of that because this video will be like 50 minutes long if I talk about that. But that's kind of where I started to regain a bit of love for life. It opened up my mind to a whole different world, and I just left the country at 19 years old, all on my own. And if you want to know more about the States, leave a comment below. But essentially, even after playing out in the States and then moving back, all those years, I was just getting injury after injury after injury, hamstring tears, shoulder dislocations, quad tears, groin strains. I was like a walking injury. I couldn't stay fit for longer than maybe an 8 or 12 week period where I just get injured again. And all the little injuries end up causing you to miss so much football that they're almost worse than a big injury. But you know, after all of it, I've definitely learned to live with it, and I don't want it to sound like I'm bitter or anything like that. Like, this is a story that's probably been around for so many years. There's so many kids that have done what I done, did what I did, had a story very similar to mine. Yes, they've now put in aftercare for the young boys, which is good. It wasn't there 10 years ago. It's a bit different now. But I'm thankful that I actually went to the States, and it really opened my mind up, because now I found love in other things. I found passion in other things that I think a lot of boys who are stuck in football don't find until they leave football and it's too late. And you don't want to be finishing your career and trying to think about what to do next. Whereas because I didn't really get that far, I didn't actually become a professional. Like, I never really let it consume me, and I always kept open-minded to what else is out there, and I learned new skills and I learned about life. Whereas some guys, they play football, they might have like a League 2 or League 1 career without the big money, and they don't know what to do at 35, 40 and what's coming. Whereas obviously I've kind of not had that transition, and I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be helping, I'm going to be mentoring, I'm going to be showing people about life, and that's really what it's about. Overall, I've accepted that it wasn't meant to be. All the politics, all the injuries, my body wasn't built for it, all the favoritism, it can't always be on your side. I've seen lads who are fucking talented, probably some of the best players I've ever seen, and they still don't make it. And you've probably heard that story a million times. And there's lads that are more talented than some of the men that are in the Premier League right now, and they didn't make it. So ultimately, you have to accept the path that God gave you. And I have now lived to accept the path that God gave me. I was bitter for a long time. Even when I was in America, I was a little bit bitter. But then I just learned to be like, well, this is their purpose. I'm going to do something that's my purpose, where no one can tell me if I'm good enough or not. I've got to go out there and prove my worth. So yeah, that's the story, man. My Premier League dream down the drain. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, man. I've got so much more videos coming. Peace.